building $1 million brand doesn't have to mean having zillions of funnels in your business. It doesn't have to mean being all of the platforms and leveraging every kind of marketing strategy and being everywhere at all times. The most important thing about strategizing out your marketing is doing it in a way that works for you, keeping it simple and sustainable so you can keep it up. Consistency is key. And if you try to do too much, you won't be able to keep it up. And that will then harm you more than being really strategic and intentional with where and what it is that you're doing with your marketing. So how can you begin to strategize out your marketing? Welcome to Building Your $1 Million Brand. I'm your host, Kira Giglu, messaging and marketing expert, conversion copywriter, and CEO of The Copy Atelier. I'm on a mission to help female entrepreneurs build $1 million brands. So if that's you, you're in the right place. Join me for the best tips, strategies, and stories from the expert trailblazers, change makers, and entrepreneurs who are building their $1 million brands their own way. This is Building Your $1 Million Brand, the podcast. Let's get to work. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Building Your $1 Million Brand podcast. I'm Kira and I'm excited to be talking to you today about this third element of the signature trio that we use at the Copy Atelier and that makes up a huge part of this podcast. So last week, in episode 91, I was focusing on the second element of our signature trio, which is refining your copy. So I spoke about how refining your copy is about optimizing your existing copy, or it's also sometimes about creating fresh copy, both cases where that copy is designed to convert. So if you haven't yet listened, you can go back and listen to that episode 91. Today, I want to walk you through the third and final element of our signature trio, which is strategizing your marketing. So I'm going to again explain what it means, why it's important, and how you can begin to apply it to your own business, how you can begin to see if your marketing is an area that needs a little bit more attention, that needs a bit more strategizing, and that if this is an area that perhaps is something that requires you to sit, do a few hours of work on, take some inspiration and some advice from this episode. So let's get it going. If you want to build $1 million brand, you need $1 million messaging. A core aspect of that, your brand story. Get our free Create Your $1 Million Brand Story workbook and get to work on crafting the kind of brand story that $1 million messaging is made of. Use your $1 million brand story in your messaging, copy, and content as a core aspect of your marketing and as a foundational part of your $1 million brand. Grab your copy now at www.thecopyatelier.com/MDBS. So let's talk strategizing your marketing. What does this mean? It means working back from the big goals that you have for your business and your brand, taking those goals and then working backwards. So I always like to encourage clients and students to think about their big sort of blue sky goals, right? These are the things that they really want to achieve. These are their dreams, the things that they are like, one day I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And the best way to do this is to take away all the fears and the barriers that you might be consciously or subconsciously putting up for yourself when it comes to these things, and just seeing actually where it is that you want to be in 5, 10, 15 years time. Often we put up these barriers, maybe we want to do something, but a little voice in our head will tell us that it's probably never going to happen. It's probably not possible for somebody like me. And that's where it's blue sky thinking. Well, what if none of those things? Assume that it will work out. Assume that the best will happen. I wrote that down in my journal the other day because I saw it somewhere. I can't remember where, probably on Instagram. But it was this idea of like, what if you just assume that the best will happen? And it was like, interesting. Yes. What if I do just assume that? What if instead of seeing all these things that you want to do and then kind of creating this false narrative for yourself that actually that's not going to happen because of X or that can't happen because of Y, and just assuming it's going to work out. It's that idea of like, what would you do if you knew that you couldn't fail? And like people always take their, foot off of the brake pedal, and they take, they remove all those barriers and like, well, I would do this and I would do this. If I knew it was going to work out, I would do all these things. And it's like, well, there's nothing to say that it won't work out. And the only thing that will stop it from working out is you not doing it or trying because you're scared that it won't work out. So you need to just try and assume for the best. So I love getting them to really think about their blue sky goals, their blue sky vision for, their life and their business. And once you have that, then we reverse engineer. So this is when we work backwards from that goal. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to see every step that you take in your business and every step that you take in your marketing as being connected, because they are. Like, they really are. And what that really means is it's seeing your marketing as an ecosystem rather than as isolated elements or isolated actions and efforts where everything is just seen as in isolation to each other. You have to see them as being the same parts of an ecosystem, where in an ecosystem, everything is working together, right, for a specific purpose. You could also think about this as, the planets in a galaxy and how they all revolve around the sun, and they all together make up the galaxy, or planetary system or whatever. I don't know. I'm not big into astrology, but it's just a good analogy sometimes. If you want to learn about this idea about a marketing ecosystem, then back in episode 76, so of course, before this podcast was rebranded as the Building Your $1 Million Brand podcast, when it was still the Copy Coach podcast, but all the episodes are still there. You can go back and listen to episode 76 because I was speaking about the idea of a marketing ecosystem. So you can get some more information on that idea in that episode. The reason that it matters to strategize out your marketing is because it will allow you to make sure that every single effort that you take, all the time and the energy and the money that you're investing into your marketing, and let's be honest, it's probably one of the biggest sucks of time, energy, and money in your business, making sure that all of those efforts actually translate into results and actually translate into getting you closer to meeting those big goals that you have. Because without a strategy for your marketing, you will essentially always be throwing spaghetti at the wall and just trying things out and just chucking things out as and when you feel like it, without any real base plan behind why you're doing that right now. What's the big goal? What's the big purpose? Zooming out and understanding from almost like that bird's eye point of view, where is this taking us? Because if you've not got that going on and you don't really know, then you should pause and figure that out first before you start throwing spaghetti. The fact of the matter is that too many people market their businesses and sell their offers and do all these actions based on how they feel in the moment, so they really go with the flow. And although it's not always a bad thing to leave room for flexibility, and I can completely understand that a lot of people don't like to sort of get bogged down too much with the strategy. And, for example, a lot of people, and even I'm the same sometimes, I don't necessarily like batch creating content really, really far in advance, because I get a lot of ideas for what I want to, especially for the podcast, what I want to tell you, what I want to talk to you about, from things that are actually happening in my business as it goes along. So if I batch create all the episodes of my podcast like months in advance, I would miss out on being able to share that with you. And so I like to retain some kind of flexibility, but other people don't. Other people love to batch create. So I understand that in some instances and for some things, having flexibility is a good thing. But if you have too much of that and you really don't have any strategy, then you'll find that you can easily get caught up in a lot of busy work that doesn't actually translate into results or moving the needle. So that's where you're just doing things almost for the sake of it without an indication of, why am I doing this again? Why am I talking about this? It's understanding how it all plays into each other and how it all impacts each other and gets you closer to those goals. That's what's important. Strategizing out your marketing also means looking at all of the different kinds of marketing streams that are out there and choosing to leverage the ones that make sense for you and your goals, your industry, and of course, your ideal client. I say this a lot of the time, but it's really about figuring out what works for you. We at the Copy Atelier, we have some clients who aren't on social media at all. So they use completely different marketing streams to some of our other clients who are very much on social media. We'll have clients who are more locally based, and so their marketing will be more local than, for example, global and online, like a lot of our other clients are. And every way works because it works for their individual businesses. And to try to place like a cookie cutter approach over every business would be wrong. And cookie cutter approaches are never really good unless you're making cookies. So it has to be customized. It has to be personalized. It has to work for you. And having that strategy and being able to leverage and choose the streams, the marketing streams that make sense for you, what that means is that it allows your marketing to be sustainable and it allows it to be simple. And this is a huge goal for us at the Copy Atelier. And even as this podcast, right? Building $1 million brand doesn't have to mean having zillions of funnels in your business. It doesn't have to mean being all of the platforms and leveraging every kind of marketing strategy and being everywhere at all times. The most important thing about strategizing out your marketing is doing it in a way that works for you, keeping it simple and sustainable so you can keep it up. Consistency is key. And if you try to do too much, you won't be able to keep it up. And that will then harm you more than being kind of really strategic and intentional with where and what it is that you're doing with your marketing. So how can you begin to strategize out your marketing? Well, really, it's about identifying the goals for your business and your brand, and I would also say your life, and then working backwards from there. So it's about understanding what it is you need to be doing more of, maybe what it is you need to be doing less of, in order to set yourself up to achieve every big goal that you have. So for example, if a big goal of yours is, like for quite a lot of our agency clients actually, to write a New York Times bestseller one day, you will need to realize that brand awareness and audience building, for example, plays a huge part in this. And so does setting up your messaging for thought leadership and creating your own intellectual property and USPs in your business through coming up with your own unique branded methodology or framework. So these are all things that we help our clients with, because a lot of our clients have these kind of huge goals that we can work backwards from and be like, okay, well, if this is where you want to get to, we're going to have to do X, Y, and Z when it comes to your marketing, when it comes to your messaging, when it comes to your copy. And that informs our plan of action. That's why everything that we do with all of our clients, but in particular with the agency clients, when we're also doing the execution of things, of the strategy, it's completely customized. It's completely personalized to them and their goals and their needs and what it is that they're actually missing at that moment in time as well. One of the most important things I always come back to and remind clients of, but also remind myself of a lot of the time, is that as the CEO of your business, you have to make decisions that are in the best interest of the business. This is one of the definitions of what a CEO is. It's somebody who takes decisions that are in the best interest of the company or business. And I always think that this kind of objective thinking is really key and is really useful as well. Because if you know that doing something is in the best interest of your business or your company, so for example, if you know that it's in the best interest for your business to be marketing on Pinterest, let's say, and incorporating that as one of your streams, and there's a lot of reasons why you should do this, so that's something to think about, and hopefully we'll have someone on talking about that soon. But let's say, for example, that you personally don't have the time to start doing this, or maybe you just don't have the inclination, or maybe you just don't really want to be doing it yourself. You'll be able to see that, okay, a priority for me is going to be hiring a Pinterest manager or allocating that task to your existing marketing or virtual assistant, right? And so it's the goal. What will steps be like there? And what do we need to implement or bring on board? Who do we need to bring on board to make that happen? And it's really all about making sure that everything that you're doing is working for the business. So recently I've been reading the book Profit First because my accountant has become a profit first accountant. So we were talking about it together and how we're going to be implementing that in the business and all these fun, exciting things. And one of the most important aspects is really seeing everything that you're doing. And of course, it's to do with accounting, it's to do with finances. So it's kind of like making sure that every expense that you have in your business is necessary, as in making sure that it's actually working for the business. And it's not just one of these things that you're just paying, or it's not someone you're just hiring that actually you don't need because it doesn't actually translate into anything for the business. And that's, again, is like an important part of this, is because if you can make sure that everything that you're doing, any new person that you're hiring, anything that you're making a priority and that you're investing something into, whether it's money, but whether it's just time or energy, you can make sure that it's doing it in a way that's strategized, that it makes sense for me to spend 2 hours a week doing this, because by doing this, it allows me to do this, which means we're getting closer to that big goal. Even for something like, why do I have a podcast? This podcast takes a lot of work. It costs money to run, as much as my parents don't seem to understand. I don't make money from this podcast, sort of directly. I think, they see these things of celebrities getting like podcast deals and being paid to have podcasts by Spotify, which Spotify, if you're listening, feel free to start paying me a little bit to do this podcast. But of course, for normal people, they don't get paid. They pay. We pay to market ourselves. We obviously get paid for marketing, but if you see what I mean. Anyway, point is, it's quite funny because I think they always think that, and that works for you too, right? Like Spotify pays you to have a podcast. It's like, no, I'm not Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. I don't get a huge, multi-million-dollar deal to have this podcast. But the point is, it takes a lot of work and it takes some investment behind it too, and it takes a lot of time. But the reason I have this podcast is because it's a massive part of my marketing strategy, which is designed to get me closer to and making sure that I'm working on constantly achieving the goals that I've set for myself and my business, because of where I want to take my business and brand and where I want to be in 5 and 10 years time. So again, it's making sure that, if you're paying to do X with the podcast, or it's taking time and you have to sit, write show notes, or, my marketing assistant, Hannah, for example, does a lot of the kind of taking the content and actually putting it on the blog and doing this with it and doing that with it. How I know that it's a good use of her time and therefore a good use of the business finances to be paying her for that time is because it's working towards a big goal, right? And that's the idea. It's just making sure that you're never doing things without actually knowing why you're doing them, just for the fun of it. Business can be fun, but you also have to be wearing that CEO hat and making sure that everything you're doing has a purpose. Everything you're doing is strategized out. And really what that means is that every piece of your marketing strategy, so both the actual wares of your marketing, like the individual platforms and streams that you're going to leverage, the different actions that you're taking, as well as the drilled down details, like what your content pillars are, what your brand messaging pillars are, what you'll talk about on your podcast, for example. All these things need to be thought out. And I mentioned, making this sustainable. And I understand that talking about all of the pieces of your marketing strategy can start to feel overwhelming really fast. But here's a massive tip for you for keeping things simple. Repurposing. It's not a secret, but almost sometimes people are kind of surprised. Repurposing for the win. If you're not currently repurposing your content, you need to start ASAP. Because, that amazing Instagram caption that you write every week, you should be sending that as a weekly email to your list. The podcast episode that you publish every week, you should be putting the show notes as a blog post on your site, and you should be pinning that to Pinterest too, right? It's so easy to actually be, Rachel Rodgers says, work hard once, making sure that you remember that even though you have these people in your audience, these ideal clients and customers who, as much as they love what you're doing and as much as they want to learn from you, they listen to you, they keep up with you, you always have to remember that they're not watching every step that you take with a magnifying glass, okay? Everybody has other stuff going on in their lives. So they will miss out on the occasional Instagram post or email. They will have things going on over a few weeks that means that they miss a couple of weeks of your podcast. but getting out that content to them in multiple ways so that you're always widening the net and widening the audience for each piece of content that you put out, which of course, each piece of content needs to be strategized so it's feeding back into your main purpose and mission and everything that you're doing, all your offers and all that kind of thing. That's what's important. Working hard once. The strategy behind your marketing, and of course your messaging and your copy as well, is one of my favorite parts. Maybe it's my academic and sort of research trained background, but really having to plot out all of the steps in a plan and figure out a way to see a certain result really gets my energy levels up. You may have noticed this on the podcast when we're talking about strategy. And that's really why I love that at the Copy Atelier, strategizing out your marketing is such a huge part of what we do with clients and students. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And so in BMME, which is our group program, we teach students how to create their own unique frameworks and use this as the base for their content strategy, for example, right? And we dive into the different marketing streams and we help them formulate their own marketing strategy so that they can be doing all these things. And of course, as I mentioned before, in BMME, we work through the whole $1 Million Messaging Framework. So we do essentially the three things that I've just focused on these last 3 episodes. We focus on each of those things in BMME. That's kind of the whole point of it. And for our one-on-one consulting clients, we work together to work backwards from their big goals, and we work with them to create a marketing strategy that is designed to get them closer to achieving these goals. And then we also give them advice and support them as they implement it in their businesses themselves. And then for our agency clients, what we're really doing there is that we're stepping in as the CMO, so the Chief Marketing Officer on their team. And this means that not only are we coming up with the marketing strategy, and as always, again, this is always going to be based on their big goals and reverse engineering from where they want to be, what they want to have, how they want their business to look. But it also means executing and implementing the strategy for them. That's the big difference there. And what this means is that this leaves them to get on with all the other parts of their business, right? Being the CEO they need to be. And for a lot of our clients on the agency side, the biggest benefit is the time that it gives them back. So whether that's because they want to dive into other passion projects, so for example, we've got one client who wants to create a nonprofit organization. So our role as CMO in her team allows her to have more time to be working on that goal. Or maybe they want to take back control of their own schedule. So for example, another client who wants to get to spend more time with their family. Again, they have that time back that they can do that. Or maybe it's just because, they want to be able to focus on serving their own clients more. Having that strategy and that execution plan in place and actually happening means that they can move the needle and advance towards their goals without it only falling on their shoulders. And that's a really important thing to remember as well. Strategizing out your marketing doesn't have to mean coming up with a huge 10-year plan for your business and brand. Okay, because I get that doing that can feel difficult and it can be laced with a lot of pressure to know the answers already. Even me, when I'm thinking about, where do I want to be in 10 years' time? It's not something that immediately comes to my brain. I have to sit and be well, I'm not sure. And it involves so many pieces. But really having a vision and an indication of where you want to be, even if it's just this time next year. And I always start people off there. If the idea of 5 or 10 years' time is I do not know, then where do you want to be this time next year? Because it's manageable, it's a workable goal, and also, let's be honest, time flies so fast that making sure you know where you're going for the next 12 months is pretty smart. And even knowing just that can help you map out the steps to get you there. A huge thing that I stress to clients and students all the time is that it's not just about strategizing out your marketing to make your business goals a reality. It's also about your life goals. Okay, so some clients want to set their business to evergreen so they don't have to show up as much as they currently do. Some clients want to get to travel every single month. Some want to get to work with clients only when they want to, as best fits around their family. Some want to have, recurring monthly revenue. That's a massive goal for them. Some want to only work 4 days a week. Some want to only work 4 hours a week. It's about thinking how you want your life to look first, then thinking, okay, what does this mean for the business? And then thinking, okay, so what do I need to do to get there? And I think that order is really important. And a lot of what we do at the Copy Atelier in line with keeping things sustainable and simplified, sure, we're here to help you build $1 million brand. But I don't believe that the only way to build $1 million brand is by, killing yourself and driving yourself into the ground by working 24/7. I don't think that it has to be one or the other, that success only comes if you're willing to dedicate your entire life and being and energy and everything to your business. I think it can also be where you take every Friday off. I think it can also be where you finish work at 3 every day so you can hang with your children after their school or whatever. Like it can be however you want it to be. And that's the thing. That's why I kind of love that we have clients who, although they have massive commonalities because they're always like multi-passionate, often multi-hyphenates, they love what they do, they're here to make a huge impact, they have massive dreams, they want to build $1 million brands, but at the same time, they're also different. The reasons for why they want to do things is different because it's so exciting, because it means that everything we're doing is slightly different for each client. Everything that we're doing is completely customized, and it's never falling into the ability to be cookie cutter because they're all so different. They all have their own drivers and dreams and goals. Even if some of them are similar, there's always nuanced things. And of course, that's true for all of us, right? We all have slightly different goals, different reasonings and motivations behind goals. And it's taking those into account when you're strategizing everything out as well. When you work like this, and when you take efforts in your business in alignment with a thought out strategy, it means that no step will be wasted, right? Every single action that you take will be advancing you towards your goals one step at a time. And this will not only make a huge difference to the results that you see and the speed at which you move forward, but it also does wonders for quieting down the fear that can pop up when you compare your journey to someone else's. If you can know that you've got a strategy in place and you're making it work, you're following a plan, you will feel confident and at ease when it comes to your marketing and your business in general. And that is the goal. Okay, that's it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway was. As always, you can tag me on Instagram at Kira Gigli, or you could send me a DM and let me know. I hope you have a wonderful day, a fantastic week, and I hope you keep dreaming big. I'll talk to you soon. Are you ready to start positioning yourself as the go-to for your ideal clients and as a thought leader in your industry? Do you want to build $1 million brand? If yes, then you need to check out BMME. BMME, aka the Brand Messaging and Marketing Elevator, is our amazing high-touch 3-month group program for entrepreneurs who want to elevate their messaging, refine their copy, and strategize their marketing. In BMME, we work through our unique $1 million messaging framework, and we show you how to apply it to your business so you can see better results from your marketing. With weekly calls, guest experts, weekly copy reviews, and access to me over Voxer, not to mention the personalized strategy and feedback, the exclusive copywriting templates and marketing resources, and the intimate group setting, BMME brings together a unique blend of education, tools for implementation, and a high-touch experience, making it one of the most personalized group programs in the industry. For more information or to apply for our next cohort, visit www.thecopyatelier.com/BMME.